But we're starting with late grading.
Oh, honestly, how many times are we going to force our brand name into a different segment?
Everything.
Every time.
I have no shame whatsoever.
Good, late grading.
Late graded. So we've got 5 grades: A, B, C, D, and E or worse.
I'm just going to go with F.
Go straight with F if you want. We'll just skip a letter. But we've got 5 categories. We're each going to give a driver that we think belongs in each based on their performances so far this season. Be interested to see if we have some disagreements. We probably will. Let's go positive to start things off, shall we? Sam, who's been an A-graded driver this season?
I mean, I feel like I can immediately pick up the obvious one there, but
I've helped you out.
you have a little bit. Thanks for going over to me first.
It's all right.
Did you explain the rule that we're not allowed to pick the same one?
We're not allowed to pick the same one unless we really don't think another driver belongs in that tier.
Why?
But
It's fun, isn't it?
Okay.
Banter with the content.
That's
Okay.
we're going to run out of drivers.
right.
Exactly.
Verstappen is an F driver then. Okay.
Well, speaking of Verstappen, he is my A driver.
Can we can't pick the same driver for the same grade? Okay.
So whoever goes last is.
This is good, isn't it? This is so late breaking. We're explaining the rules of our own segment live on the show.
I'm also enjoying the way that you two are holding your mics, the different styles you've got going on.
Yeah, if you can watch this, it's being recorded. It'll go out on YouTube.
Ben's put his stand up like it would be on a table, but then holding it.
Yeah.
Why?
Feels counterintuitive.
Don't know, mate.
Don't care.
I haven't really thought about it.
I'd like to have one of the things just on the end that I could just, like a normal, like a singing mic.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Anyway.
Sorry, back to the grading. Late grading.
Max Verstappen, eh?
Shock. He's my A grade driver. He's won everything but 2 Grand Prix this season, and I would argue that the 2 he didn't win were for quite not controversial reasons. I wouldn't blame him entirely for the reasons.
Well, he started 15th in one of them, didn't he?
Right, yeah. So actually, still surprised he didn't win that one.
Well, far off.
Yeah.
5 seconds or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that explains it, and we're going to get on to what he thinks his best drive is later on in the segment, and I'm quite partial to agree with him, but he's had some absolute belters, whether it be starting from the near the back of the grid, 6th place, 1st place, everywhere he starts, the man just brings it out on top. I don't think, and this is I think a big statement, I don't know if I've seen someone at one with the car to this level as maybe Schumacher in 02.
You passing Hamilton on that?
I genuinely don't think I've ever seen Hamilton as comfortable across a whole season in a car. And that might be, this is no disrespect to Sergio, I think Hamilton's teammates have always been a step up from Sergio Perez. Again, we're going to talk about the Toto Wolff comment later.
Yeah.
But Sergio's still a solid driver, and Max has just literally become one with the car. So whether you're a fan...
To become one.
Very good. A Spice Girls reference. Who would have thought it? Yeah, so I've stolen the good one early. Max Verstappen, by far. I mean, I would go A star, really.
Yeah. Sure. Certainly, if we're getting more specific, I think it's going to be very difficult to give him anything but an A star or an A plus, but certainly belongs in that top tier. I'll take one for the team here because I'm going to go last on this. Harry,
Nice.
who are you picking for an A grade this season who is not named Max Verstappen?
Bax Madappen.
Oh, he's been all right, hasn't he?
I've not heard of him. What's he done?
He's won every race this season
Yeah,
apart
yeah,
from 2.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I'll go for Fernando Alonso, head of the fan club. He's had a belting year so far, apart from that sprint race on Saturday in Spa.
It don't count.
Ignore it. Not a
Doesn't
real
count.
race.
Well, we don't count it, so
Well, yeah.
exactly. Exactly. He has been, obviously the car he's been given is the best car he's had since 2013 at least.
Since sliced bread.
Since sliced bread, yeah. And he's utilised it to its full extent. I mean, every race, given where that car and the performance of the car fluctuated, but can you say he's not, apart from the sprint race, he's not delivered? Maybe Spain is probably the only one this year. Where
Yeah,
he
that's the
hasn't.
one I would compare.
Again, he's probably not missing out on 2. He's not missing out on a podium there,
No,
right?
no,
That
so
car wasn't there.
It's like 2 points.
Yeah.
And we've said that when the car's not competitive, he just doesn't care anymore. He only cares when it's competitive. So, yeah, Alonso for me. I mean, Verstappen's obviously the star of the show, but Sam went first, so
Yeah.
Alonso.
Just like me.
Yeah.
Well, good news on this one because I had 3 drivers listed out as A drivers so far this season. Number 1 is Max Verstappen at an A plus for me, and then I've got 2 A drivers, one of which is Fernando Alonso, the other one being Lewis Hamilton. He's been this sounds weird to say for a 7-time world champion. He's been underratedly good this season, I think.
I think a lot of people, because of their high expectations of Hamilton, aren't actually looking at his performances this season and going, well, that's just what, again, very much like Max Verstappen now in the lead. You go, well, Hamilton should be doing this. But he is every single race.
I mean, I'm a nerd about this, and I sort of do ratings for my own pleasure that no one else is after every Grand Prix. Nerd. It's just a sea of 8s. But that's been his season, right? It's just been 8 out of 10 every week.
What would give him a 10 out of 10? A wing? I mean, it's not going to happen.
Well, yeah. I mean, he hasn't been perfect at some of them, but he said there haven't been any bad performances, which is what made a lot of his championship years, right? Was consistency. And he seems to have got that. I don't know. It feels like the Lewis Hamilton of old this year.
Like, 2020, kind of 2019 Hamilton.
Yeah.
Back at it again.
I don't know. It feels more reminiscent of that than we had last season. Last 7 races in particular have been seriously impressive. All season, he's been in the top 6 every single race this season, apart from once. And the last 7 races, he's been in the top 4 6 times. And over that same stretch, George Russell's only done it once. Perez has only done it 4 times. Alonso twice. Leclerc 3 times. Sainz 0.
And you'd argue with the way the teams are jumping around that second fastest spot, Mercedes haven't comfortably sat in that spot, at least for the last 4 or 5 races.
Yeah, he's just... Austria was probably the one poor race that he's had so far this year, but other than that, he's probably where he needs to be in most Grand Prix. So, yeah, I agree with both your selections. Those were the other 2 names I think belong in that tier, but Hamilton, I think, is definitely deserving of a place this year.
Yeah, funny enough, I had 3 names on my list, in my mind. Just because we're talking about Formula 1 outside world doesn't mean you need to drive like it.
We should close the window, shouldn't we?
No, I need the cool breeze.
I need air.
I need air. I need to breathe. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, Harry, you get to go first on this one.
Nice.
Woohoo!
B.
Who's
a B driver?
Bono.
B for Albon.
No, for Bono.
B for Pete Bonington. Okay, right.
No,
Interesting.
B is for Albon. For me, if Albon hadn't thrown away what probably would have been some chunky points in Australia.
Chunky points.
Chunky.
Oh, that sounds a bit sick.
Big chunks.
Oh.
Then I think I would have put him, or at least really consider putting him in an A grade. But just because of Australia, which was a bit annoying, I'll put him B grade. But for me, he's been very impressive this year in terms of he's maximised, in the same way Alonso has, I guess, he's maximised the car when it's been competitive enough to be in the points, if not 11th, which he's done a couple of times, I think. But yeah, I think he said last year was a good first year back for Albon after the disaster of Red Bull.
That feels so much longer ago than it actually was.
Not that long, was
Yeah.
it?
No.
2020. He only missed 1 year.
It's because of COVID.
Yeah.
You forget the year exists. I just feel like...
I'm fully on board the fact that Pierre Gasly was teammates with Max Verstappen in 2004. Like, that did not happen 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's very true. So he's built on that sort of solid first year back, and this year I think it's been very impressive. But yeah, because of odds, he hasn't quite got an A, so he's a B.
I do not disagree with you at all. He's also part of that category for me. I will therefore say Chuckles Le Buckles.
Chuckles Le Buckles.
Chuckles Le Buckles.
The Bluckles.
Yes. I think he's had a B year so far. Points-wise, he was struggling for a little while. Certainly.
Is that him or the car?
Exactly. Well, yeah. Him and Ferrari have been struggling for points. At least in comparison to Sainz as well. He was down on Carlos Sainz for a chunk of the season, but he seems to have risen above Sainz now. But yeah, whilst there have been a few lackluster drives this year, I think you could probably put that more on the team rather than you can Leclerc. Nice. Yeah, right.
More on the team.
Yeah, more the team of morons, more on the team. Yeah.
Yeah, they get it then.
Nice.
Yeah, lovely.
Good banter.
I mean, Australia was not a highlight. Wasn't good.
No.
You remember that? Yeah, that wasn't great.
I was there. Not in Australia, but I did see it.
But other than that, I think
in Australia.
Well, he crashed out, didn't he?
May have ending his own race.
Yeah.
Who Chuckles Le Buckles?
Yeah.
What did he do?
What did he do?
Maybe I fell asleep at that one.
Into turn 3, I think it was.
Into turn 3.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He just drove into Lance Stroll.
Yeah. That's the
Oh,
one.
nice one, Chuck.
Wasn't even part of the stupid red flag bit.
No,
at the
that's
end.
what I was thinking. I don't remember him being
Oh,
there.
right, yeah. No, he was done before then. But there have been some good performances this year. Bahrain, he deserved a podium there. Obviously, reliability cost him. Austria was very good. Baku, of course, he had pole and then a podium.
The man's Saturday ability is ridiculous.
He's got 3 podiums this year, and Ferrari really tried to make that number as little as it possibly can be, and he's persisted. So I'll say Leclerc. It's pretty much a middle of the B tier for me. Sam, you got to go last on this one.
Yeah, that's fine. I got the privilege
You
of
got
going
enough?
first.
You got a name?
I did. And you know what? Both the drivers you had on there, again, I picked 3 for each category because of
yeah,
how
lovely.
the game works, bit of prep. And my final one is our Big Lando.
Big Lando?
Big up
Bando Loris.
Bando Boris, because driving for McLaren. Because... oh, dear.
Andreas Bella, yeah.
And whilst... oh, no.
Bruce McLaren, that's how it works.
Stop.
Just B.
Whilst the start of the season was not great, and this is why I don't think he qualifies to be an A-star driver this season, since being given the upgrades, and actually, before then, he really was trying to extract the most out of what was a really naff car for the first few races of the season.
Wasn't quick, was it?
Slow as balls, I think is the phrase that's been
Correct.
used.
Croquet balls.
Big fat croquet balls.
Stop it.
Anyway, but since being given the upgrades in Austria, immediately back on the pace, fighting with Ferraris, Mercedes, delivering strong points, incredible in Silverstone, arguably could have gone to win that race, really, really tight with him there. And then, of course, we've just seen the most recent performances with him where I would say that Spa was the biggest letdown. He still managed to claw all the way back up through to P7. And for McLaren, that's still a really solid result. Piastri out corner 1. I think he's done a really, really good job. I think there's still ways he could grow this season. I think he can still improve, hence the B and not the A grade that he's receiving. But, generally...
Don't carry on.
Good. But generally, I think, he's had a very, very strong, better than good year so far. So, Lando for the B grade.
There's a lot of agreement so far because both of those drivers did also make B grades for me too.
Wait till we get to the negatives.
Oh dear. I did have Lando for me was the top of the... I had him like a B+. I think he was probably leading that pack. But yes, I agree with you. C tier.
You should go first this time.
I will go first this time. Who shall I pick?
Very well done with the notepad, by the way. One-handed.
I know,
that
right?
was smooth operator. Speaking
He is actually part of this tier for me, but I'm going to go with someone else. I will say Pierre Gasly.
Pierre Gasly! That's how Ricardo now likes to say.
Gasly.
Sausages out, everyone. Get your sausages out.
So it hasn't been perfect for him. In that when he dreamed of a move away from Red Bull, he was probably hoping for something like what McLaren have done over the last few races. Or indeed, something like Aston Martin have done this year. Instead, he's part of a team that has no employees anymore other than him and Esteban Ocon.
They do every role.
His best race, I think, this season was probably the first one of the year in that he qualified last and he managed to still finish 9th. So he had a pretty good comeback there. Outside of that, it's been a lot of okay, which is why he's in the C category. He's only had 2 top 8 finishes all season, which isn't great. And also when you compare that to Esteban Ocon, Ocon's had 5.
And he picked up that podium in Monaco.
And including that podium in Monaco.
Which is a really solid drive from him.
And a lot of people probably want to point out that, well, if you take away Ocon's performance in Monaco, then it's probably a bit more even, which is flawed logic in itself. But if you even were to take away Monaco, Ocon is still minorly beating Gasly this season. So I think it's been okay. There's not been a lot of terrible in there, but also not a lot of great.
No, I think that's what C grade's all about, isn't it?
Yep, that's why he belongs there. If you got...
Speaking of the smooth operator, I have got Carlos Sainz. Sorry, Harry, if that was who you were going for. You look devoed.
He's angry.
Yeah.
Very angry.
You won't like him when he's angry.
He's definitely prepared 3 names like you have.
Have you?
I had 2.
No chance.
Both the 2 have gone.
There's 3 of us here, mate. You should
Law
have
of
done 3.
averages. I thought maybe you wouldn't pick him.
Oh, right.
Clever.
Carlos
make some
Sainz,
up.
he's not embarrassed himself particularly, and I do think that weirdly, not his driving, but his ability to think throughout the race and command the pit wall and manage what are the negatives of Ferrari. He has done that, I think, better than Charles Leclerc. I think he's kept his head better at strategic calls. I think he's managed his engineer better. I think Leclerc is starting to get a little bit frustrated, a little bit wound up.
Sainz gives me slight Vettel 2020 vibes in that he's not as good as Leclerc, I don't think. But strategically...
His head's screwed on.
Yeah, and Vettel was very much like that when Ferrari were at their worst.
Yeah, and I think Carlos Sainz is still doing... This is going to be a little bit harsh on Carlos, but this is why he's in the C category. He's still doing a second driver's job quite comfortably at Ferrari, you know. He's not securing the podiums, which is letting him down. He's not matching the results of Leclerc, which are letting him down. He's not there on a Saturday, which he needs to start being more regularly. But, more often than not, pulls in good points, finishes right behind his teammate, and in the points difference on the table, they're not too far apart from one another. So I think he could do more. Again, this is why he's in a C. But I also don't think that people are starting to look at him going, get him out the car. You know, this season's his last chance. He needs to get on with it. I think he's got himself another year.
I think if Ferrari had to list their problems, Carlos Sainz is probably not in the top 300.
Yeah, that's a fair number.
Yeah. Who have you got, Harry?
I think.
No, I actually do have one. Nico Hulkenberg.
Fair.
I think I'd have gone higher.
I've also got him at C, yeah.
I've gone B minus.
I mean, I think that's a fair shout. For me, the Haas can only do one thing,
Correct.
And that's warm its tyres up really quickly, which is bad for races, but quite helpful for qualifying. And Nico Hulkenberg, he's taken full advantage of that, and he's run with it.
He always was good at qualifying, wasn't he?
He was, but I don't remember him being like this good.
He was a little bit better than Perez when they were teammates.
Anyway, so, and obviously then you see in the race, just on the timing tower, he just falls down until he's like 18th again.
Must be so painful. It's like when
tyres.
on the F1 game, you change the difficulty for qualifying because the AI get too good, so you lower them. And then for the race, you put it back up again, and then you just slowly get overtaken by everyone.
Yeah.
Have you tried using intermediates in dry conditions on the game?
No.
That's what Nico Hulkenberg has to deal with every single race.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe they've painted their tyres incorrectly.
Yeah. Maybe.
They've got the hypersoft tyres in qualifying, and then they have to use the intermediates in the race.
Hypersofts.
I miss the hypersofts.
I don't. So Nico Hulkenberg for me, I think a B or at least a B minus is probably still also a fair shout. He's had a couple of or a few mistakes this year. I mean, Spa was pretty bad. I know the second one wasn't really his fault. Well, no, sorry, the first one wasn't his fault in qualifying, but been a better comeback than I expected from Hulk.
One of my surprises of the season, I would argue.
I agree.
Yeah,
he's been pretty solid.
And the hair, I respect it.
Yeah.
Nico Hulkenberg.
I do keep saying it, folks. If I lose some weird forfeit, I do low-key want to do it.
We'll just do it anyway.
Nah, I'm not that bold.
Go on.
Literally, I will be that bold.
Do it for the Vine.
For the Vine?
Yeah, do it for the Vine.
Okay. Can we just restart Vine,
I ain't gonna do it.
please?
We'll do it for the Vine and it might come back.
Yeah, that'll be Vine will revive itself if I dye my hair blonde.
Yeah.
D grade.
Am I going first?
You get to go first on a D grade.
Oh, I hadn't decided one of my three or which one I wanted.
You're going for D's. Sorry. I couldn't resist. Go on.
I'm going for Sergio Perez. In the
Perez
D
in a
grade.
D.
Yeah, I am so disappointed.
Where have you got him? If I don't know if you
Yeah,
he
he
was
was-
top of your head.
He was
but-
in my D.
Really?
He's in your D, is he?
Oh jeez Christ.
Oh,
I didn't mean that.
that's inappropriate.
He was in the
it's
D.
a family podcast.
Anyway, same.
Yeah.
What about you?
B minus.
Get in the bin. Speaking of bings, you heard that Wilkinson's going under.
I have.
Yeah.
I'm gutted.
If you do, no, we can't do that. We were going to do a shout out for. Go on. Carry on.
What are you doing a shout out for? Wilkinson's.
Other places you can get pins.
Wilkinson's is the only one. If you're not the one. Yeah, sorry, Sergio Perez, D grade. I think he has had a stinker. I think the first couple of three races of the season look really promising, and we the three of us together were hyping that man up like he didn't have his own PR team right
Nah,
behind
I'm not having that. Did not buy it for a second.
Me and Harry were hyping him up. Actually, he wasn't there. I was hyping him up like he didn't have his own PR team. You know, he was talking about fighting for the world title. I'm going to go toe-to-toe with Max Verstappen every single race of the season. And then it hit Miami where he got trounced by Max Verstappen when he started 4,000 days behind him and still beat him. And then he's like, oh, confidence is quite literally in the Wilkinson's bin. Can someone find it for me, or has it been sent to recession? Because, I don't know what's going on with my career right now. It's awful. His cut-throughs through the field aren't good enough. His qualifying's been atrocious. And even when he starts near the front, he's still a whole pit stop behind Max Verstappen come halfway through the race. It's not good enough. And again, we're getting onto it. But the Mercedes duos were often way more competitive. And I wouldn't say that Hamilton is worse than Verstappen at his absolute peak of race day. So it's not like it's an easier bit of competition. I think he's doing enough to win them the constructors. I mean, Max is doing that himself. But, Sergio's there. He's second placing in the drivers, just. It's all right. It's okay. But I think that's a D. And I think he is scraping the bare minimum of what is acceptable for a second driver in Red Bull at the moment.
Have you got a different name, Harry?
I do.
Who have you got?
Well done, mate.
I've gone for Dorge.
George Russell?
George Dussel.
Dorge Dusseldorf.
D grade?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
What's he been doing?
You think he's had a worse season than Nico Hulkenberg?
Yeah.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Nah, have a day off. For the record, I've also got George Russell as a B, but
He's very kind to all these drivers, Ben.
apparently so.
I'm a C minus.
I'd give you a B.
Give me a B, thanks.
No, he meant he'd give.
Yeah, I was rating Sam though.
All right, fine.
Folks, I'll take a B. That's the nicest thing that anyone's ever
Everyone
said to me.
tweet us. What would you rate Sam?
If anyone says F, you're blocked.
Ungraded.
Fan page.
Oh, God.
Oh, come on, man.
Karma!
Immediate karma.
Folks, just hit himself in the face with his microphone if you can't see it.
God, I'm not used to this setup.
I've really enjoyed
So
that.
pinned into this
Right.
chair.
You hate George Russell. Why?
No, I don't hate George Russell, obviously. And for his radio messages alone, he's an A-star.
Correct.
This
He is
season.
the entertainer.
Facts.
He just, in the same way that Lewis Hamilton's had quite an under the radar season, George hasn't, and it's just sort of been like, was mainly his qualifyings, I think.
Not good.
Not great. I mean, if we're going to rinse Sergio Perez,
I think at least 40% of his qualifying this season has been outside of Q3.
then exactly.
Exactly.
So, exactly. Then I think Russell needs a shout as well. So it's been disappointing from George, especially after the last year. He hasn't been anywhere near as good in my opinion. And I love George, mainly because of his radio.
Exactly.
He was the last Brazilian driver. Last driver to win a race that wasn't Red Bull.
That is true.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Okay, I had 3 names in this tier. Exactly 3 names. And neither of you have said any of them.
Ooh.
So I've got a free choice.
Can you give us your 3 anyway?
Yeah, sure. Do I want to pick on Logan Sargent,
Fair.
who I had at D-?
Yep,
Nah.
okay.
Do I want to pick on Kevin Magnussen, who I have at D+? Nah. I imagine he's going to make an appearance later on anyway.
Oh no.
You might.
Yeah, figured he might. I'm going to go with Lance Stroll. I've got him at a D grade. What's his best race of the season?
Spain.
Bahrain.
Okay, what did he do at Spain?
He beat Fernando Alonso.
And finished.
6th.
For the record, I agree. I think that probably was his best race of the season.
And
But
I only beat you because Fernando was waving to the crowd 3 laps from the
I
end.
will not attack you, Lance.
Yeah, I promise. I love all my fans.
Bahrain, he lost to Alonso by a few positions.
I meant more just because of the lack of wrists.
Fair enough. The point is, if you have to really search for one good race in a season that has had, 13 Grand Prix so far or something like that, it's probably not been brilliant.
No.
It's not been ideal.
He's 102 points down on Fernando Alonso at this
That's
point.
quite a lot when you haven't won a race as a team.
And here's a fact. And I mean, you say I agree that George Russell's not had as good of a season as I think he should have done. Lance Stroll is currently closer to Alex Albon than he is to George Russell.
Oof.
I think that should tell you everything you need to know.
It's a big oof.
I don't know. It's just there has not been a lot of good. Therefore, I struggled to give him a better grade than this.
I mean, I can't disagree. He was right down here for me.
Speaking of right down there, let's go to the last one. E, F, ungraded. Just basically anything worse
You
than
failed.
D.
You
Yeah,
have
you
failed.
failed this year.
I think Harry gets the
Harry,
first pick.
you do get first pick on this.
Kevin Magnussen, what you doing, son?
What are you doing in this sport?
In the, especially last year, he came back with maybe you come back to Haas, you have one good year, and then or not come back to Haas, you come back to F1, have one good year, and then that's it. So Hulkenberg will be terrible next year as well.
I feel like with Magnussen, his race pace is not that dissimilar to Hulkenberg's.
I agree.
It's just qualifying.
Yeah, sort it out. Like,
Yeah.
not even... It's like the most exaggerated version of Perez and Russell in terms of his qualifying
Apart
pace.
from in Spa, where he was actually all right.
It was right in
Yeah, it was
Spa.
alright, Spa, yeah.
But
like,
1 out of 13 is not really good.
No. Yeah, K-Mac has been, I guess, another surprise or disappointment, I should say, of the season for me. Given
Schumacher beating Merchant.
Well, exactly. Given
I have high hopes for K-Mag. I mean,
Yeah,
look
get-
at teammate wars alone, but
given how
We're going to have a midterm review of that next week.
no, thank you.
yeah, I'm busy.
I'm sorry, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, given how I guess he outperformed Schumacher last year, which I'm not saying it's a massively high bar. I'd probably give it the higher bar than you two would, but I expected him to. We always said this move of getting rid of Schumacher and getting Hulkenberg is like having another like the same driver in your team, because Hulkenberg, Grosjean, Magnussen were all of that same.
They're literally copy and paste of each other.
Exactly.
Pretty sure Kobayashi's coming back.
Yeah,
And,
from
another one.
different countries
I would argue that Perez actually probably fits into that mould as well.
potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many of the same man.
So yeah, it's been a shocker in my view for K-Mag this year. So far.
I've only actually got one name that made it to this tier.
Okay.
Logan Sargent was like on the border.
Teetering.
I give him a D-.
He's a rookie, so
Yeah, he just about survived. Nick De Vries didn't.
I was going to say, was I allowed to say Nick De Vries?
Yeah.
he was there.
I mean, I can't say it anymore, but
I don't actually have much to say on Nick De Vries because
honestly, what are you doing here?
I wouldn't gain any satisfaction in rubbing it in anymore. In that, like,
My God,
That's like a massive fart.
Nick De Vries going
didgeridoo.
past.
Yeah, obviously he wasn't good enough. That was very evident. There's not much more to say.
No, you are very much correct, and you both said the two that I had. I did have one other name, though, and you've both just been too kind to that one other name.
Have we said it already?
No, but you've just said that you wouldn't have put him in this category because he's a rookie.
Oh,
Logan Sargent.
I have lost patience with Logan Sargent now.
Give him half a year.
Well, no, not as in like get out the seat immediately, but he needs to get on with it now. He needs to start being a little bit more consistent.
I agree it's not been amazing, but I think Albon's probably showing him up more than he's being bad.
I think there's an element of truth to that in that Alex Albon is literally beating everyone he can. In that the only people beating Albon in the drivers' championships are McLaren drivers, Alpine drivers, Aston Martin, Mercedes, Ferrari, Red Bull drivers. Like every other driver that he should be beating, Alfa Romeo,
But if
Haas.
we were going to rate all the drivers 1 to 20, best being number 1, bottom being 20, where do you put Albon? Where, like on that scale, where would you put him?
About 10.
Right, so about a midway down, right?
Yeah, probably about that.
So Harry, any
Or
thoughts?
midway up.
Correct, glass half full. That's what we like to hear.
Yeah, I think I'd keep it around there.
Right, so about the midway point. So he's not being beaten by Lewis Hamilton in the same car, right? We don't think this
He wouldn't
guy-
do that.
No,
Lewis Hamilton wouldn't beat him.
No, that's true. He would succumb to the sergeant. But this is my point, right? Albon is a good driver. We're all impressed by him. He is driving that Williams very, very well. But this isn't Max Verstappen he's up against. You know, there are weaknesses. There are moments that Albon has. He's not perfect. He's still growing. He's still developing. Same with that car. He's not exactly been there for that long that he understands every element of what's going on. Sargent has got talent. He has got ability. And I don't think they should turf him out right now. But I do think that the gap for what they could be achieving is too vast for how good Albon actually is in comparison to where the grid and the car is sitting. I think while Albon is slightly overperforming the Williams, Logan Sargent is massively underperforming the Williams. And it's actually, we're seeing a bit of an uneven balance of what I think the Williams car actually sits. I don't think it's by far the worst car at all anymore in the grid. I'd argue actually it's better than the Alpha Tower. It's better than the, I was going to call it the Sauber, the Alfa Romeo.
Sauber.
And over race pace, I think it's better than Haas. So realistically, I think Albon is probably beating the people he should be beating over a race distance across the halfway point of the season. Sargent is what? Now Nick De Vries is gone and we're reviewing all Ricciardo last?
Yep.
See, I'm not saying get rid of him. He does need time. He's a rookie. He does deserve the time. But it's not good enough right now.
My biggest concern about Logan Sargent is that I think his best performances were at the start of the season, which is
worse.
is not a good sign as a rookie. Like I genuinely think his Bahrain Grand Prix might have been his best Grand Prix.
Saudi was quite good, wasn't it?
Well, exactly. Second race.
Yeah, I was quite surprised with him with Saudi.
He had some pace there as well.
And I think that's
First
why
2 races of the year.
I've lost a bit of patience with him, and I'm nervous now that we're going to get through to some really tricky Grand Prix for that Williams. You think Zandvoort, you think Singapore coming up.
It's going to win Spa.
Well, it's come and gone, mate, so we can't win that.
It's going to win Monza, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. He needs a belt of a performance in Monza. He maybe needs a good one in somewhere like Kota to pull it out. Maybe
We'll be there.
maybe,
So
yeah.
that might help him.
Cheer him on.
We'll have a chat with him, I'm sure. Vegas, because that realistically should suit the Williams as well. I think that probably he's got maybe 3 opportunities to really show himself up. He needs to start grafting.
All right, well, there's our gradings from A down to E. We're going to take a short break, and during the break, I am going to conform to Sam's way of holding a microphone.
Don't call me an influencer.